those conversations that we have with leads, we've had over 5 million, have to be indistinguishable from human.
Hello and welcome to episode 77 of the Smart Agents Podcast. My name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. If you're always feeling pressed for time and looking for ways to automate more of your business, you will definitely be interested in today's conversation. Nate Joens, co-founder and head of innovation at Structurally, joins us to talk all about how conversational artificial intelligence is changing the way agents not only follow up with leads, but also qualify them at the same time. Now, before we get on to the day's featured interview, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. You can find the show on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and now Amazon Music. Also, as you can see if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Click the bell to get notifications when each new episode is uploaded. And lastly, if you or someone else on your team has an awesome story or real estate tips to share with our community, send us some feedback at smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new stories to share. All right, let's get on to today's featured interview with Nate Joens. I really enjoyed our conversation and a peek into this incredible technology.
Yeah, honestly, really just the way I like to start everything out is if you could introduce yourself a little bit, who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nate Joens here, co-founder of Structurally. We are a lead qualification as a service company, basically powered by conversational AI, which I can get into, but essentially we're just having very human-like conversations with old leads, new leads, anywhere in between leads to kind of free up your time or your inside sales team's time. Because, every business, especially in real estate, gets a lot of leads. Lots of leads are kind of looky-loos or tire kickers, and that's a lot of time spent not closing deals. So that's where we're really focused on and been running Structurally for about 5 years. We brought in a new CEO to replace me as CEO last year, where I'm now get a focus a little bit more on kind of industry relations and new market expansion with our product.
Right. So what was it 5 years ago that you saw, that there's a need for this?
Yeah. On the backstory, Structurally is my first and only job ever, straight out of college. This is the only thing I've ever done. And in college, me and my co-founder, Andrew, actually wanted to be real estate investors. That did not work because we had no money, and you need a little bit of money to at least get started to a degree in that field. But what that actually did was get us in touch with a lot of real estate agents, lenders, property managers, et cetera, and kind of got to pick their brain all the time. It kept coming up that they hate following up with leads. They hate the behind the scenes stuff. What I've learned about agents over 5 years, talking to tens of thousands of them, I feel like, is they're great in the field. They love to be face to face. They love closing deals and making relationships. But texting leads, emailing leads, cold calling, that's tiring. But that really is where the money is made. So we set out to solve that problem of lead follow-up and qualification with AI, because we felt that at the time, AI had come along for far enough to actually solve it rather than like throwing a bunch of humans at this problem. Call centers have been around for 20 plus years. And we felt with some really intelligent data scientists and machine learning engineers that we could solve this problem with actual conversational AI in just as lifelike, human-like a way.
Right. So as you were kind of putting this all together, so you did, I'm assuming, with what you're saying is you didn't have a whole lot of AI engineering background yourself there.
None. I am not an engineer. So we hired some really smart folks from where I went to school who were PhDs in math and stats. I think one of them was studying his PhD in computational theory, which is crazy. Yeah. But he had a focus on natural language processing, which is kind of the whole bread and butter behind making conversational AI work, and convinced him and a friend to join early on and set out to solve what I felt, what not knowing at the time, was actually the hard way to get into this this kind of whole realm. I think that real estate was the hardest industry we could have picked to start, because those conversations that we have with leads, we've had over 5 million have to be indistinguishable from human. When you're having a conversation about buying a house, it's one of your biggest financial decisions of your life. And I'm sure we've all heard the 3Ds of real estate: death, divorce, and disease. Those are not fun things that require a lot of empathy. And the last thing that people want to do is feel like they're talking to a computer. So we set out immediately to say, this is going to be not your typical chatbot experience that we all have probably had now and hated. This is going to feel like talking to a human. And of those 5 million plus conversations, we've actually done an analysis and seen that 0.01% believe or have asked a question of if this is a human or not. So 99.9% believe they're talking to a human.
Right. So, I mean, that's got to have a huge, just knowing how, all the back end work that goes into that, to where the algorithms and all that AI can kind of like figure out how to respond. I'd imagine the thought that goes into setting up the scenarios had to be massive.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things that people don't think of when they think of a conversational AI product in general. When they see a product like ours, we've had a lot of people that are like, I can build this myself. I can think of, like, they see the surface of just a conversation, which looks really easy because we all have conversations every day. So it's like, oh, I could think of that. But when you actually have to think of every possible turn or scenario in a conversation, it's almost unthinkable. Anyone in our product can say anything at any time. So we could be going down a script, which we allow people to customize. What's your location preference, price? Are you approved for financing? Someone could come out of left field, which we see all the time, and say, hey, you know what? I'm going through a divorce. This is really tough for me. Can you please help, get my house sold too? I need to get out within the month. And we need to be able to handle that on the spot while still trying to come back to the script and kind of fully qualify them. So when you're thinking about all of the different turns that you can think through in a conversation, it's literally, you can't do it. So we've built a product in a way that can handle those gracefully, even for the scenarios that we haven't planned for, because we've had 5 million conversations, but we have definitely not planned for the conversations we're going to have today or tomorrow or in the future.
Right. And you touched on it, a little bit, is that empathy. And real estate is all personal relationship building. If you don't have a good, solid personal foundation with that client, they're probably not going to use you. But then if they ever do, it's just you just put a bad taste in their mouth, and they're not going to use you in the future.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And some of the things that we do, obviously there's positive life events too, not just the 3Ds. There's a new child, a new job. We always say, congrats on the new child, or thanks for the new job. Or if they're a veteran, thank you for your service, things like that, that go a long way in making the conversations feel really lifelike. Some of the fun little things that we do too are like, we put we are not afraid of typos. In about 5% of all of our messages, we misspell words like the, and then correct it a second later with asterisk THE. People love that because it's like, that's what a human would do.
Right. Yeah. And it really sounds like you have thought. I mean, those are like just little tiny nuances that if somebody was typing and working with your, dealing with your bot, if that were to happen, it would instantly take away that idea that I'm actually talking to a robot. Yeah.
And I'll let everyone in on a little hack that we've learned. Really successful response rate is, so we follow up with leads about 52 times over text and email over the course of a year. So we're a little aggressive on purpose, because I think most agents are not aggressive enough. But our highest response rate drip message is actually, we send it's called a nudge message. So after an initial registration or upload, we can work new or old leads. We'll send, hey, thanks for contacting us, whatever. And then after 12 minutes of no response, we send a message that just says, let me know if I can help. And that message gets an extremely high response rate compared to the others, because so many people respond saying, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought that first message was automated, so I didn't respond, but clearly this is a person. And then they start up the conversation. So that's a little fun hack because I think the consumer world has sniffed out a lot of these kind of autoresponders, automated first messages. So if you literally just go one step further and say something, a little out of the blue, like, hey, I'm a real person that, maybe that first one was automated, but I'm actually here to help, people will open up.
Yeah. What is it, when it comes to this conversational AI and how it has, is really, it is necessary in today's marketing world because everything is, I can't tell you how many text messages from different, services that I've used in the past or stores that I've visited. I get tons of them every week, but that, like you said, the conversational. So having that ability to have those automated conversations and really be able to free up people's time. How have you seen that kind of grow in the, not just the real estate world, but just everywhere?
Yeah. I always like to kind of think about this in terms of like where we've come as a society in technology too. It's like all of our marketing has been one way to date. I'll call it like transactional. It's you send a message out, you can automate some more outbound messages over time, but as soon as someone replies, it's over. That sequence or campaign has to stop. Most software today is written in that, when someone replies, take them out of the campaign. But that's like where the real work begins. It's not like, great, you got someone to respond. Now what? Now you have to qualify them. Now you have to probably chase them again because they'll probably ghost you again. And that's where our product actually steps in. So we get the response. Now we're actually going to qualify them and keep chasing them until they're qualified or disqualified. So it's a lot like, up until today, we've just been throwing the ball one way. But now in today's world, we're playing catch back and forth, which I think has come a long way and where we'll start to see a lot more software move.
Right. And when you talk about qualifying the leads for real estate agents, that can be, depending on their business model, that can be a pretty lengthy process. So how do you kind of fit that into the script, to really kind of start qualifying if this person is somebody that the agent would be willing to work with?
Yeah, that's a really good point about, I think most agents like kind of forget how many people are in their pipeline at a single point. We've talked to some of the top inside sales agents, ISAs in the world. And at best, they're managing like 500 to 700 contacts in their pipeline at a time. That's great. And that number has moved up because of automation and because of texting and emailing, and you're not solely reliant on calls. But what they're very keenly aware of is texting conversations or email conversations can drag out. Mm-hmm. You have a lot less, on a call, you can get through it. You can qualify them. You can say this is a go or no go. On a text, someone can just kind of ghost you, be really passive. You don't really know and drag out your time forever. And I think that has actually, while it's kind of let us handle more conversations, it's like now we're overwhelmed sometimes with conversations. But in terms of that just puts a lot more emphasis on being able to get to a no or a yes. I mean, that's sales 101 is sometimes it's good to get to a no because then they're out of your pipeline and you don't have to deal with them, at least for now. So in our product, we have over 50 pre-built, we'll call them scripts or campaigns that range from buyers to sellers to investors to renters, inquiring about a specific property, inquiring in general, old leads, new leads, refinance, new loan. We have the full kind of buffet of property pre-built scripts. But you can also customize all of our conversations. So some of our scripts are very basic. We always like to think about their readiness. Are they thinking now or in the future? What's their time frame? Are they working with an agent? Are they approved for a loan? Have they talked to a lender? Beds, baths, price, et cetera. We're also trying to get a little bit more into their motivation. We like to talk a lot more about them rather than property, so we can actually figure out the whys behind things. And I think that's important. But then we are always trying to set up a next step. So we are trying to schedule a phone call with you, the agent, who is essentially our product's partner. Right. And that's kind of our sell, is we really want to get to some sort of next step. So that person is expecting a warm phone call rather than ignoring a cold call from a number they don't know.
Right. And so when, if I'm, just thinking as the agent, if I am working with you and there's been this text conversation going on for a few days or however long it's taken, and you're gathering in all this information, how does, once the phone call is then scheduled, or how does all that information come to me so I'm, prepared to have that conversation and I know all those whys?
Yeah. So we do have a mobile app and an agent dashboard where you can actually take over the conversation at any time. We usually suggest let it play out because we have a lot of features in place to keep chasing leads, even if they ghost us, which happens all the time. We'll be mid-conversation and then we won't hear from them for a week. Lots of agents give up. We keep chasing. But we like to say, let it run out, but you can see these conversations happening in real time, take them over. And we integrate with most residential real estate in general CRM products out there. So you can actually see the full conversation right within your CRM. And in some cases, actually take over the conversation right from your CRM too. So ideally, we want you staying in the loop, but also kind of letting it run its course.
Yeah. Awesome. I just think, just the time that anybody knows that as a text message comes in, or if you're responding to different things at a time, just one can take up a ton of time. If you've got 3 or 4 that you're trying to keep track of who's who, that's a recipe for disaster. And it's also, very time consuming.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
What, so when it comes to structurally, how does somebody, find you guys and then kind of get set up with, getting involved with the campaign?
Yeah. So it's just best way is just structurally.com, and you can get started pretty quickly. Really, it's just about hooking up your lead sources, which takes one call, or you can do it yourself. It can be either integrated directly from your CRM, or sometimes you have lead sources from elsewhere like Zillow or wherever. And we also work old leads, which a lot of people forget about. You have gold in your existing database. I've talked a lot on other podcasts, including one of my own from a while ago, that you could, my belief and some other ISA coaches believe that most teams could stop new lead generation, stop paying for new leads, and probably do better, make more sales in a given month. We don't suggest that forever. It's more of a thought experiment, but our belief is, you have so many leads in your database that are probably thinking about moving. They just need a nudge. But most agents are so focused on that new lead because I get it. They're hot, they're warm, they just came through, they're top of mind, probably easier, but you've already spent money on those old leads. You should keep in touch with them. There's probably some gold in there. So that's also something that you can very easily upload to Structurally. So it's really just hook up your lead sources, old or new, and hook up your CRM, and you're kind of off. If you want to use our pre-built scripts, which most of our customers do, you can always just tweak them very slightly too if you don't like certain questions or answers.
Right. Yeah. And when you talk about those, the gold and you're already, your existing leads, I'm just thinking about the way the market's been the last, 2 years, I guess, almost now. We're getting close to the 2-year mark of it. Yep. Like what, those people that, maybe they were an expired lead, 5 years ago, and they've just totally just not even thought about it. But if you just reach out with do you know how much your house is worth now? Like that, a lot of people just don't even realize what their house is worth if they haven't been paying attention, if they're not really involved in the market.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We've seen so many people just send one-way kind of nudge messages to their database and get flooded with responses, which is great, but then you kind of need to triage those as well. So I would definitely recommend, if you're going to go to have a takeaway from this, to go blast your database. That's great. I encourage it, but have a plan in place to be able to maintain those conversations because they'll happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just think that whole, finding ways to automate is really key. And it is something that you almost have to, fail to learn. like by sending out that blast and then just being inundated. I know when I first started doing this podcast, I sent out this email to a huge list, and I was underwater for days trying to keep up with the responses and scheduling. So now I've gotten it, a lot more automated, using other apps to kind of help schedule. And that was something I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And make sure all of your systems talk to one another for sure too. Like you said, you want to make sure that your CRM is your single source of truth, but that it talks to whatever you might be using to schedule appointments, showing time, Calendly, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What, when it comes to AI, the future and the growth on it is unlimited, really. So I think that's really exciting for what you guys are doing. Is there always something new that you're adding or coming up with, or, a new piece of technology that you can add to it? What does the future look like?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think a lot of agents, Gary Keller, I think, came out and said data is the new oil. 100% agree. And he probably says that because AI runs on data. A lot of people think that AI is some magical thing that does all things. Maybe we're not there yet. All of that data is how AI is trained, and all of that data comes from humans. So there's no such thing as self-learning AI. All of the data that runs it has come from somewhere, a human at some point. So that's one myth I always like to dispel, because some people come in and say, oh, it'll learn on its own. No, it'll learn from data that was tagged by humans. Right. But I think one thing that I'm really excited about for the future of AI is I'm solely focused on making salespeople's lives easier. Mm-hmm. And real estate agents are sales and marketing folks and entrepreneurs, but mostly salespeople. That's how they make money. And there's actually a study out there by Salesforce who has seen that salespeople spend just 2/3 of their time, or salespeople spend 2/3 of their time not selling. So they spend just 1/3 of their time or their week actually selling. That's a big disconnect, especially when you're making a commission, which most salespeople do. So my whole why I wake up in the morning is to flip that. Maybe we won't get to 100% of their time is actually spent selling, but if we can flip that and say they're actually spending 67% of their time selling, that's great. That's going to mean they're another third more productive. And I think that having a product like Structurally or other automation will help move the needle there. That's a big chunk, which is why we started here. But I also think there's a huge opportunity for copy and content to be augmented by AI. I think salespeople spend so much time writing emails, writing responses, writing legal, writing their website copy, all these things that just requires tons of writing. We do it all the time as sales and marketers. So I think there's a huge trend in a model called GPT-3, which is by OpenAI, an former Elon Musk company. Well, it's the largest natural language processing model in the world. And it can be trained to do a lot of things, but a lot of people are training it to actually write text for them. So some people have trained it to write books for them, kids' stories, emails, blogs, SEO content. So where we are tending to go is, okay, Structurally can have the conversations for you. We will write scripts for you, but maybe you want other scripts written for you too. And so our goal is to hopefully also have AI kind of write scripts for you and write copy for you, as well as have the conversation for you. And I think that'll move that needle to having sales teams spend 2/3 of their time actually selling.
Yeah. And I think, just wrapping up, I think, it's always interesting, with the advent of this technology and, using the technology more, but it's really using that technology is allowing people to have better personal connections with the people that they're actually selling with. And especially, and that's so important in real estate.
Yeah. I've always, when AI was a little earlier, people were scared, still are, that it'll take jobs or replace jobs. We have always said that the role of AI is to augment the role of the inside sales agent, basically. That's our belief. And what that means in my belief for AI as a whole is it will take over the mundane tasks that we all hate. No one likes picking up the phone and cold calling 100 people to get told no, and a lot of other words 99 times. AI is fine with it. That's great. And so I think that the whole world of AI will be to replace a lot of those mundane tasks, which is what I'm so excited about. Because I think it will benefit all of us to be able to spend more time on things we love doing. Like I started the podcast here. Agents are great in the field, building relationships. It's what you should be doing. Let AI take care of the rest, or other automation take care of the rest.
Yeah. Awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. It's such an interesting topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate being on. Thanks for letting me cover all things AI.
Definitely.
I really want to thank Nate for joining us today and telling us all about how Structurally is using conversational AI. This technology has really come a long way in a short period of time, and it will certainly be interesting to see where it goes in the future. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an awesome story or tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.